We welcome now to the show Jay Feely, the former NFL kicker, current CBS NFL analyst, to try to help us break down what's going on with some of the playoff kickers here. Brett Maher, 4 missed extra points on Monday night. I know that, Jay, that's got to be the first person everybody has wanted to ask you about this week. Going back to Monday night, at what point could you tell from watching there was something wrong, at least mentally, there with Brett Maher?
Well, when you saw him miss the second one, because this is a guy who had an unbelievable, Pro Bowl type year. He was, 91% on the year for field goals, 9 for 11, over 50 yards. I think 50 for 53 on PATs on the year, and so had just an excellent year kicking for them. And when you miss the second straight extra point, you go back. It was the third straight going back to the game previously last week, and you're like, oh, there's something going on. And then that third one, you could just tell it was mental. And I kind of said it was similar to a golfer who goes out, a pro golfer, and he 3-putts the first hole. He misses a 4-foot comebacker, and all of a sudden he can't make a putt all day. And, I think of a guy like Will Zalatoris when you've seen him over like 3-footers, and you just know, and the stroke isn't the same, and he's just hoping it's going to go in rather than knowing it's going to go in. And I think that's exactly what's going on with Brett.
Explain to me, Jay, and thanks for joining us, why guys like to put the ball on those hashes instead of in the middle of the field in terms of a kicker. I know it's the preference of the kicker, but why do they do that? And if they miss, why don't they kind of alter that thought?
Well, Michael, it's just like a golfer, right? You have some golfers who hit a little draw, some golfers who hit a little fade, and so they'll set up on the side of the tee box that tries to eliminate one side so they know where their miss is going to be. And if a kicker knows my miss is right, I tend to fade the ball a little bit. If I put myself on that left hash and I'm aiming down the middle, it gives myself a little room for error because I know I'm not going to miss left. I'm not a pull kicker. I'm a push kicker. And so that gives me more room for error by putting myself on that left side. And you see a lot of golfers, if you watch any of the PGA Tour events, you'll see them line up on different sides of the box to do the exact same thing.
Again, Jay Feely, you can follow at Jay Feely joining us right now. I just wonder for this week now, Michael and I were talking about this off air, and we'll get into our handicap a little bit later. In a 3.5-point game, Dallas, San Francisco, really elite defense for the Niners. You would figure kicking game is certainly going to matter in this game. No indication yet that Dallas is planning to do anything else than throw out Maher back on the field. From your experience, when you've had your struggles, like what's this week going to be like for Maher as he tries to get back into form?
Well, it's going to be the hardest week for him of his career. And mentally, he doesn't want to – I've been there. I went through it when I was with the Giants. And for me, I missed a game winner at the end of the game and then 2 game winners in overtime at Seattle. And it was a game that was going to decide home field advantage. It was a big game. And we lost the game versus them winning the game. But he's got to come back and not listen to any talk radio, not listen to us talk about it on your show, not open any newspaper, look at anything. He wants to go in and just get this week over with. Get in there, kick some balls, today in practice. Hopefully he kicks them well and makes them, and then Thursday as well, and then get this game going. And for me, like Saturday Night Live did a spoof about my game. So Saturday night, I'm getting ready to go and play Philadelphia and just try and not lose my job the next day. And all of a sudden at 11:30 at night, I get 50 text messages and they're like, dude, they're killing you on Saturday Night Live right now. And I go out, Michael, I go out to kick. I get a game winner again at Philly the next week. And they call a timeout to ice me, and they play a montage of all my misses on the Jumbotron during that the city of brotherly love. But it's a
they're cold-hearted.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Exactly.
So,
in fact, our owners, the Maras were not happy about it. They wanted to see if that was legal with the NFL. Because you can just think of all the things you could put on a Jumbotron.
No doubt. So, Jay, forget about Saturday Night Live. Forget about the media and all the outside noise. How does Maher convince Mekhi Parsons and Dak Prescott and everybody in that locker room, man, I got this? Like I said this at halftime of the game, I would have told him to stay out there and practice. Like, you don't need to come in here at halftime. Just get your shit right, get your stuff right out there. Get that thing going. Don't worry about coming in here at halftime. Like, how does he convince himself, the teammates, that he's got this?
He can't do anything this week to convince him. And I tell young kickers this all the time. his work ethic and what he did in the offseason will dictate how they respond in this situation. So if he's out there every day in the offseason doing the lifts, doing the runs, doing everything that they do to prepare himself to be the very best that he can be, then when you go through a game like this, your teammates are going to have your back. And that's the difference between those guys that work really hard versus those guys who are just kind of kickers, and do as little as possible. And just kind of get by. That's how my teammates were amazing for me and having my back and being there for me, just like they would anybody else, just like they would Dak Prescott last week when he played terrible, or a receiver who drops a touchdown or a running back who fumbles, and costs them the game. They're going to have his back the same way. And he shouldn't change anything. I read a couple articles where they were talking about all these things and bringing guys in and putting pressure. Like, you need to understand your players. And Michael, you talk about this all the time in your books. Like, you got to know each guy and how they respond. Some guys do respond to pressure, and you got to bring somebody in. Some guys respond better to putting your arm around them and loving on them and telling them how good they are. And so you got to know your guy and put him in the best situation this week to help him go out and perform the best this weekend.
Jay Feely, the former NFL kicker, joining us right now on the Lombardi Line. What about another kicker who it's not been the same struggles like as a Maher, but Evan McPherson didn't miss in the playoffs a season ago. Dude was money as the Bengals made it to the Super Bowl. Look at the stats this year. He's missed 5 field goals, 4 extra points, missed a kick last week. What do you see when you watch McPherson?
Well, he got on a roll last year in the playoffs, and that helps your confidence, even if you struggle during the season, to try and get out there and keep kicking. But you look at that Bengals-Bills game, the game I'm going to do, and you figure it's going to be, a high-scoring game, and it's going to be close. And so those points are going to come at a premium. It's going to be in Buffalo. It's going to be windy. It's going to be possibly snowing. So you're going to have elements. But it is a turf field, and that's always the biggest factor for me. If it's an outdoor grass field in the cold, that makes it really difficult. When you have good footing like you do in Buffalo on the turf field, that helps a little bit. But that wind is the biggest factor there. Last week there was no wind. It was kind of crazy, how nice of a day it was. But looks like it's going to be kind of windy, and they're going to need him to make kicks, and they got to trust him, and hopefully he can get back to that form that he had last year when he couldn't miss.
Jay, how much in the pregame, Buffalo's such a freaky, funny stadium, how the wind shifts and moves around. How much in pregame do you think McPherson will get a handle on it when he comes back out to then have to kick something later in the game?
Well, I'll tell you a funny story. We were playing the NFC Championship. I was playing against Philadelphia. I was in Atlanta. And it was like 15 degrees, 40-mile-an-hour wind in our face. And David Akers and I tried to kick 40-yard field goals. I think between the two of us, we attempted about 20, and neither of us made a single kick. Like, you just could not make a kick. And our coaches came up, and they're like, what do you think? And we both were like, well, don't kick a field goal going this way. So you got to kind of feel it out. You got to try to figure out what the wind is doing. That's where being the home field where you go there and you kick as much as possible. When I was with New York, every day I would go down into the field at the Meadowlands and kick in that field. Jeff Eagles and I would, to try to understand and get to know that wind patterns and how it reacts and what it does and kind of see it. And the more you kick there, the more comfortable you get understanding, knowing, even David in Cleveland, Phil Dawson, and then he did it again in San Francisco, put a little flag way in the corner up so that he knew where the wind and only he knew where to look for it, where there was a little bit of an advantage for him in those stadiums because it was his home stadium. There's certainly a home field advantage when it comes to those kind of stadiums for kickers.
That's a great point. I didn't know that. That's a heck of an idea. Wow.
You would think more kickers would potentially
Michael, in your stadium, there's an open end and the wind's going to come through. You know that area is going to literally help you, and you throw a little flag up there, and you're the only guy who knows that flag is going to give you the true wind patterns. That's a big advantage.
Yep.
And Jay Feely joining us, the former NFL kicker, CBS kicking analyst. So you'll be in Buffalo, right, this weekend, Jay, with Jim Nantz, Tony Romo, rest of the crew?
Yeah, I'll be down there freezing my butt off on the sidelines with Tracy Wilson.
Make sure you get those hand warmers, Jay.
Get those hand warmers, Jay. There we go. Well, thank you so much for giving us some time. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Jay. You're the best. Appreciate you.
Hey, good to talk to you guys. Enjoy it. Take care.
Absolutely. Thanks again, Jay Feely, for giving us some time here on the Lombardi Line.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.